So often we look at a person's personality type and we think that tells us what kind of job they should have. But working genius is what you do. It actually allows us to avoid hiring people who are going to be miserable.
You've written in the past that it's a mistake to think that A-level talent doesn't need to be managed.
Working genius helps us understand how they might need to be managed. But the truth of the matter is, every person in the world benefits from management. I don't care if you're running a $10 billion company and you're managing the CMO, everybody needs to be managed. The thing about a short meeting, it's efficient, but it's not necessarily effective. Most organizations try to, and that's why people hate meetings.
Yeah, fam, welcome back to the show. And today we're airing part 2 of my conversation with Patrick Lencioni. We're going to be talking all about working geniuses for teams. Now, if you didn't listen to part 1 of my episode with Patrick, I would go back now and take a listen to that. Part 1 of the episode is really the foundation of learning about working geniuses, working competencies, and working frustrations. We go over these 6 different working geniuses, and that part 1 episode is really focused on the individual. So how can we understand what our working geniuses are? How can we understand what to do with our competencies and frustrations and how to treat them? How do all these different 6 core working geniuses work together to put on a project? And we really focus on the individual with Patrick Lencioni. Now, Patrick Lencioni is an expert on team building and team efficiencies. He wrote over 12 best-selling business books. He's one of the most famous business authors. He has a consultancy group called the Table Group that helps companies improve their operations, company culture, and team efficiency. So he knows all about how to have rockin' teams, which is what we're going to be talking about today in part 2. Really focused on teams and organizations. How do we roll out the working genius assessment to our teams? How do we use that to identify gaps within our organization? How do we use that to retain our employees better? How do we use that to improve our meetings and productivity as a whole? So I think you guys are going to learn a lot from this conversation. Let's jump into part 2 of my conversation with the amazing Patrick Lencioni. So I want to move on to more of like team effectiveness, productivity, talking about how we can roll this out to our whole organization. So let's start there. If we wanted to roll this out to our organization, what are the stages of actually doing that? Like, what should we think through?
And we're doing that more and more now. And the first thing is, and the good news about this is the results are they resonate with people so quickly that there's not a lot of organizing you have to do. In other words, once a team, I think it's good to do it in teams, right?
Okay.
So, but we have organizations where everybody in the company does their working genius. And suddenly and they know what they are. People remember what they are. And so people are going around the office going, hey, could you come to this meeting? Well, I'm not in your team. I know, but if you come to them, we really need some galvanizing. We don't have anybody on our team that does that. So it's like, first of all, just get as many people in your organization to know what they are. The language, the vocabulary, and the way people work together is going to change. Okay. But then do the team map. The team map is a piece of paper that shows you in all 6 geniuses where you have people with geniuses or frustrations. And so you can see the gaps.
Okay.
And right away, literally, you look at it. I had a team I worked with, Hala, and it was a technology company, but a big one. And they had nobody on the executive team with invention. Nobody. And it was a technology company.
Wow,
and,
that's
they were
terrible.
No, and they were frustrated. For 10 years, they hadn't had a new idea. They were really extra using their old products. And they were like, why can't we come up with a new product? Well, we looked at their type, and it's because they were all about implementation. They were all like, well, we got to make our numbers. We got to have our tight schedule. And nobody there liked to sit back and ask questions and come up with new ideas, except for one guy on the team. And he was their lawyer. And they were like, why don't you take over new technology acquisition? He's like, well, I'm the chief legal counsel. And they're like, yeah, but you like it, don't you? And you're good at this. And he's like, I love it. I would love to do that. 2 years later, he was no longer even in the legal department. He was running that part of their business. And so what the answer to your question about how do you roll this out, get people to do this and talk about it on their teams, and they are going to solve problems. Just looking at it and going, well, hell, I could do that. I love that. And somebody else is going to go, you love that? Why? I hate it. And they're like, well, but because I'm this. And they're going to go, well, let's change the way we're getting this done.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot to do there, but there is this. We have a program around which we call certification, which is you can take one person in an organization and make them kind of an expert in this in 2 days. We have this training thing where you can do it online, it's virtual, and in 2 days you can become an expert, and then you can be the consultant to your organization to help them figure out how to do this.
I love that.
So we've had like 3,000 people get certified already, and like companies will say, we're sending 3 of our people through certification, and they're going to teach everybody in the organization how to use this.
Yeah. I have to say, whenever I roll, so I'm definitely rolling this out to my organization. Because first of all, it's so cost effective. It's $25 per, it's like not expensive. And the amount of money that you'll save from productivity and not having to hire. And it's just a game changer. And even just the activity itself, I feel is going to make my employees happy and feel like we care about them. And
right.
I'm just going to roll it out as like an activity that we do across the company. And then everybody has new language, which creates a deeper bond because everyone's talking about, are you an innovator? Do you have tenacity? It's something else to bond everybody together as well.
And it's not a judgment thing, because like there are some things that people go, I don't want to be put into a box. I don't want to be limited. They don't respond to this like that very much at all, because it's about joy and energy. And everybody wants to know, everybody wants to be able to share to people, hey, I really love doing this. So if you could let me do this more, I'd be really happy. They don't feel like they're being judged. It's really about revealing to other people what their favorite things are. And so it doesn't feel like any people get condemned. It feels like it's people feeling understood.
The other thing that an idea, and this is not something I necessarily read, I literally just got this idea, is that I want to implement it as part of the hiring process.
Oh, we think that, I got to tell you a story. So, you're not really allowed to use in hiring, there's certain legal limitations about using assessments. Right?
Oh, really?
It's not as bad as people think. But we actually had a lawyer come to our office. I worked with him and his team. I didn't know this. He was the guy that argued the case before the Texas Supreme Court to not let them use assessments in hiring because they thought it could be biased and all those other things. So he hated assessments. I did not know this. We did Working Genius with him and his team. At the end of 2 days, I found out that he was that guy. And he goes, I think this one works because he was actually giving people feedback, and he goes, I can't believe how everybody is resonating with this, and it makes sense to me, and I'm actually now talking to them using the Working Genius. Because it's related to work itself, it actually allows us to avoid hiring people who are going to be miserable or hiring somebody and putting them in the wrong job. So we're developing, it's almost done, an AI tool where you could type in a one paragraph job description. We want this person to do this and this and this and this, and it'll spit back to you the most likely working geniuses that will help find the person that would do that. And you know who loves it is employees who are getting hired and they're like, I don't want a job I'm going to hate.
Exactly.
So it's a great matchmaking tool, and we use it when we talk to people. You can't necessarily force people to, but a lot of staffing companies, they're gonna get their candidates all to do it. They're staffing companies to do this now.
Okay.
And then when their clients call and say, hey, we need somebody to do this job, they look at their Working Genius and they go, hey, I think this job would be great for you. Or I think I have a person who would love this. And it's taking staffing and hiring from a crapshoot where 50% of the time a person is like, I don't know why I took this job, to one where we're getting a lot better at knowing who's going to succeed and who's not.
I'm sort of disappointed because I was so excited that I was like, okay, I'm just going to make this mandatory because, like, for example, I'm looking for an EA and I need to make sure they can create. Well, and I need to make sure they have tenacity. I need those two things.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Innovation and tenacity.
I love it. So an EA is a perfect job because one EA is not the same as another. Hey, one CEO is not the same as another. It depends on what kind of company it is. But so you're looking for an EA. What you can say to them is, hey, I would love for you to take this if you want to. It'll help you. It's a gift. Here's a gift for you to do this. Then I'm just going to describe what I want. And if you think that it's a good match for you, then that's fantastic. We'll talk about that. But oftentimes it's the candidate who will look at it and go, oh no, please don't hire me for this job. This is going to be miserable for me. Because you're saying you want somebody with tenacity, and you said somebody who can create.
Yeah, invention, and they've got to get stuff done.
Okay, so that's called the methodical architect. Okay. And that's very, like, if I had an administrative assistant, and we're hiring one for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm moving to a new place and I need a new one. And I need a DT, which is discernment and tenacity. You know why? Because I will not give them detailed job descriptions. They're going to figure out how to help me. Now, if I were a different personality as a CEO, I would tell somebody what to do. And I might want them to be an ET, which is to do whatever I tell you. But I'm going to say to them, could you figure out what you think I need? Because I don't know. And that's really different. And in your case, because of the work you do, you want somebody who's actually creative. Now, there's a lot of people that don't want an EA that has that.
Yeah.
So it's not so much about every job with that title needs the same thing. Frankly, one person's executive assistant is different than another's. One person's head of marketing is different. People talk about this like, what would be a good head of marketing? And I'm like, I don't know. Do you want somebody who's lead generation and closes deals? Or do you want somebody that's come up with a new brand strategy and understands the market from a strategic standpoint? Those are two different roles.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how often, and you know, the CEOs hire a head of marketing and they don't even know what their working geniuses are? And they say, well, they were good at marketing before. Yeah, but they did a totally different job.
Mm-hmm.
So I think working genius, I don't know how to make it mandatory for a candidate, but usually you can say to the candidate, if you want to figure out what you are, I'll tell you what we want. And then you can convince me that you think you could do that.
I love it. That's what I'll do. That's the approach that I'll take.
Totally.
I just want to make sure you're okay on time. It's 3:10. I think I'm going to put this out as 2 episodes, one as the individual, one as the team, and we'll just do it 2 episodes.
Whatever you want.
Is that good? So I can go till I can do 15 more minutes. So we can just do 15 more minutes.
I can do that too.
Okay, cool. So another thing with teams is that you say that there's sometimes genius gaps. Can you talk to us about some of the common genius gaps and how we can actually figure out if we have any gaps in our organization?
Yeah, like if there's an organization that has no T, right? That like you look like there's 5 people working on something and nobody has tenacity. They're like, how come we have these great ideas, we get motivated, and then they never seem to get implemented? Or you only have 1 T on your team and you're killing her. Or you're killing him, because every time you get to the last stage, we're going to that person going, okay, can you finish this? And the finishing stage often takes a long time, and we're crushing that person. I did an organization once where I looked and they had 10 people startup, and 1 person on the team had tenacity. And I think her name was Laura. And I said, hey, Laura, I just met them for the first time. Do you ever think you're going to get crushed? And does everybody else think she might quit because we make her do too much? And they were like, oh my gosh, how did you know? And it's like, because she's the only one that finishes. And they're like, oh no, we got to hire more finishers or actually rethink about how we do these things. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or if you're a company that has no W and I, you might be the most organized, efficient company in the world, but nobody's actually saying, maybe we need a new product, or maybe our customers aren't happy. So, you're not identifying the opportunities. So any gap in the 6 things, if there's an egregious gap, causes problems. If there's no enablement, I had an organization that I worked with that served churches. So they're very kind, but nobody had enablement. And so they were like, how come nobody helps? Shouldn't we be helpers? We work with churches. It's like, oh, nobody has the genius of enablement. Nobody comes along and says, yeah, I'll volunteer to do that for you. And so any gap is going to show up. And usually teams look at the gap on the thing, and in 5 minutes, they're like, oh yeah, this is why that project failed. Or this is why we were good at this thing, but why we're not good at this thing. So it's pretty predictable. It's pretty self-explanatory.
And you say that the best way to sort of identify these is by visualizing everything with a team map. So what's that process like?
So everybody takes their assessment on an account, and then they just say print a team map. And it's just a piece of paper comes out and it says wonder. And it shows the list of people that have it as a genius and the list of the people that have it as a frustration. And if there's none, then they all have it as a thing in the middle. It's very easy to see. And there's green and red. So you look at this thing and you go, oh my gosh, we have no green in discernment. Or we have a whole bunch of reds. In my organization, we had a whole bunch of reds in invention, and I was the only green. And so not only was I the only inventor, but the other people in my organization really hated having to come up with new ideas. And what that told us is 2 things. Is 1, we can't be pulling me out of invention too much because there's nobody else that's going to fill that gap. And when we hired the next person, it would sure be nice if they had invention as a genius, or at least certainly as a competency. So there was a little bit more of that in the atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of my organization so much. Like, I started with a social agency, super innovative, always going viral. And then I launched my network. Kate's running my agency. She's more of enablement tenacity. And I'm always just like, we're using the same strategies that I did. Like, and then I'm like trying to figure out the new strategies, and I'm getting mad at her because I'm like, you're not inventing. But now I realize, like, that's not what she's good at. I need to get somebody else that's going to invent. So it's
how great is that to realize that? Because what happens is then people will say things like, so I don't have enablement and tenacity. And it's very easy for people to think that or for me to think about myself that I'm lazy. Now, I work my ass off, but I'll go like, I guess I'm kind of lazy because I don't have enablement and tenacity. And it's like, well, I'm just not an implementer, but I'll work really hard in the things that I do. Or a person that doesn't have invention, we can go, they're not very smart. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, well, gosh, I come up with these ideas. They can't they come up with an idea? It's like, no, it's just a different genius. They're smart, but in the thing that they do. So it avoids judgmentalism. Now, let me tell you, if a person is really lazy, I have a book called The Ideal Team Player, and it's about humble, hungry, smart, the 3 values of a good team player. There are people that aren't hungry. They don't work hard. So there are people that are slackers, and they deserve to be recognized as such, but that's not about their skill set. It's about maybe they're just not motivated. Maybe they never learned how to work hard. Maybe they don't really care that much. So I'm not trying to say that there aren't things that you should let somebody go from your organization for. There are. Yeah. But if it's just that they're wired differently, man, that's a tragedy when we lose good people because they're just wired differently and we attribute it to something else.
Totally. I totally agree. And it's really hard to hire people, and it wastes a lot of time. So if you could just sort of plug people and switch roles and lateral moves, like, that's going to save a lot of money and time. Yeah, fam, I'm not a finance person. I'm a make money person. I love to innovate, create, and sell. I don't like to do the boring finance stuff. So I've offloaded all those responsibilities to my business partner. And so I basically handed a mess over to him. He inherited a lot of different apps, and he would always complain about all these disparate apps. And so we were looking for a more streamlined solution where all of our banking and bookkeeping would be in one place. And we found that with Found. Yes, it's called Found, which is very fitting. Found is a banking and bookkeeping app that is especially made for solopreneurs and entrepreneurs. It's made for us. And Found has amazing features. You can do everything from invoicing to bookkeeping to tax planning. One of my favorite features on Found is that it will actually automatically estimate the taxes that you owe and then set aside money for that. This is so important because oftentimes you spend your tax money unknowingly and then you're hit with a bill, and that ain't pretty. In addition to that cool feature, one of my other favorite features is the fact that you can create virtual cards and then set spending limits on them. Now we have virtual cards that we're able to give out to our employees. There's no way they can overspend. Found is super cost effective. There's no hidden charges and there's no minimum balances. Plus, it's everything in one app. So that in itself is a lot of cost savings. You can save hundreds or even thousands of dollars by switching everything to Found. If you want to try it for free, that's right. You can try it for free at found.com/profiting. That's FOUND.com/profiting, found.com/profiting to try Found for free. Found is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services are provided by Piermont Bank, member FDIC. Found's core features are free. They also offer an optional paid product, Found Plus.
Yeah, I really think in terms of productivity, if you have 4 people and you have them in roles and you didn't know why, and you figure out their working genius and you make adjustments, you're going to save 2 hires. And there was a saying years ago, I remember when I first got out of school, and they said if you have 5 engineers working on a project and it's not getting done, get rid of 2 of them. and what they meant is sometimes it's just that, there's too many. But I actually think when you tap into, if you have 5 engineers working on a team and you actually help them understand their geniuses, they're going to get the work of 9 done.
Yeah, I can't wait to implement this. So go ahead.
Would you please let me know how that goes? I can't wait to hear what you guys learned. It is so fun to get stories back from people who have rebirthed an employee by helping them figure out their thing or avoided hiring the wrong person or letting go of the wrong. I love to hear those stories. So if you would share that with me, I would love that.
Of course, I'd love to tell you about it. I'm very excited. In terms of how you roll it out to an organization, is it a different process, or are we still going and taking the assessment individually, or are we like signing up our organization so we can see all the results? How does it work?
Yeah, if you go on there, it's very clear. I know that because people do it all the time. And I can also tell you, I don't know. Because as the inventor of this, I'm amazed at I'll be at some place and I'll say, hey, you should take the assessment. And then I'll go, I have to find somebody that can get you on to do that because I don't even know how to do it. But it's very simple. When you go on and everybody fills it out, it's just one person signs them all up and they put it in the same account.
Got it. Okay. So youngandprofiting.co/work. You guys can take the assessment individually, or you can sign up your organization. We'll make sure of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And call us if you want. We're at tablegroup.com and you can find us on the internet and you can call us and we'll walk you through it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's get into some more tactical stuff because I know you're really good about having good meetings. We talked about Zoom, just some productivity, team management type of stuff. So you've written in the past that it's a mistake to think that A-level talent doesn't need to be managed.
Yes.
So what do we need to know about how much to manage someone, and especially maybe in the context of working geniuses?
Yeah, well, I think, and I love that you asked in terms of working genius, because I've been saying this for years, but working genius helps us understand how they might need to be managed because not everybody's the same. But one of the things I find in organizations is a lot of CEOs, one of the things they don't do is they don't manage their direct reports. And what they do is they say, well, I'm a CEO now and this person's on my leadership team, so I shouldn't have to manage them. They're an adult. Or they think that managing is micromanaging. And so they say, well, I don't want to micromanage them. I trust them. But the truth of the matter is every person in the world benefits from management. And that's why being a CEO is so dang hard, because it is unmanaged. And a board does not manage a CEO. Oftentimes, boards need to be kind of humored. And one of the hardest things about being the CEO of an organization, it's lonely and there really is no guidance. Now, you have to seek out advice, but there's nobody that says, I own this and I will give you direction and the buck stops with you when you're the CEO. So there's something naked about that role. And that's why it's a very lonely and hard job. But when leaders say, and I fall into this category too, I don't like to manage people by objectives and details and all these things. Because I'm an ID, I hire people and I go, hey, I hired a guy recently who has ET, he's all implementation. But I said to him, hey, why don't you just figure out what your job scope should be, and you tell me what success looks like, and you tell me what your job should look like. And I want you to figure it out on your own. And he was mortified. And because that's my ideal job, by the way. And he's like, I want measurables. I want structure. I want expectations set for me. And I realized I can't manage him the way I would want to be managed. I have to manage him to make him the best that he can be. And too often CEOs abdicate responsibility. They don't delegate and they don't, I say at least be a good macro manager. Know what they're working on. Know if they're doing well. Check in with them. Provide what they need based on their working genius and take responsibility for being their manager. And I don't care if you're running a $10 billion company and you're managing the CMO, or if you're an entrepreneur and you have 4 employees. Everybody needs to be managed. It doesn't mean that there's a specific system for it. It doesn't mean you're checking in every day on their deliverables. It's less about efficiency and it's more about effectiveness. And so even if you don't necessarily like doing it, do it and do it for them based on what they need.
Yeah. Even just, like I said, taking this assessment made me realize, even though I have employees that haven't taken it, I know what they are now and how I need to manage them.
Yeah.
Somehow. It's just so clear. It's really clear.
And you know what you're going to do with them? You're naturally going to go by their office and brainstorm and inspire them. You'll do that. I don't have to tell you to do that. But what you might not do is go, okay, do you have enough information about whether you're succeeding or not?
Exactly. The management, the enablement stuff. How can I be a better enablement?
Right.
It's chewing glass for me. I don't like it, but I have to do it. Young and Profiters, I love being an entrepreneur, but I hate the hiring process. And if you do it wrong, it's a real big burden because you're going to have to hire and then fire. It's bad for company culture. It is just a nightmare. You need a good hiring tool and you need a good hiring process internally. And when it comes to a tool, nobody is better than Indeed. That's what we use at Yap Media. Indeed is your all-in-one solution for hiring. Indeed is where all the top A players are looking for a job. It's the most popular hiring platform. It's the most user-friendly. It's way better than having to sift through a million resumes and waste your time. And I love that Indeed's matching engine actually gets better as you use it. It starts to learn your own preferences and what you're looking for. So if you want to give Indeed a try and find your next A player, if you want to stop pouring money down the drain by DIYing your hiring, then start using Indeed. You can get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/profiting. Support the show by letting them know that you found them on Young and Profiting Podcast. Again, you can go to Indeed.com/profiting for a $75 sponsored job credit. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
You know what's great, Hala? When you go to them and you go, hey, you know me. I'm an IG, by the way. I want you to see this. And they're going to go, of course you are. That makes sense. So, but there's things you need that I don't do naturally. So just know, though, I'm not saying that I don't want to do them. Just know that it's not easy for me. And if you come to me and say, hey, I need more clarity from you on something, I'm not going to take that as a complaint. I'm going to take that as a compliment that you know I'm not good at it and you need to provoke me to do it. Mm-hmm. And that'll give them permission to do it without going, Hala, are you going to get more specific with us? And you're going to go, not naturally, I won't, but if you ask me to, I will. So they can coach you. Your employees will be your best management coaches when you give them the language and the permission to do that.
Mm-hmm. So something that we agree upon is meetings don't necessarily, to have a successful meeting, it doesn't have to be short. Okay, I've heard that. And
yes.
This is something that me and my business partner, Jason, disagree upon all the time, where he just wants to have short meetings. And I'm like, we had a short meeting, but like, what was accomplished? Like, we don't know what to do. We need to talk about it. Like, it's not about just having short meetings. We need to know what to do and have clarity, right? So I'd love for you to just break down some of your best tips in terms of having good meetings. And also the fact that a lot of people tuning in right now are having Zoom meetings. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Most of the meetings are Zoom. So let's talk about that.
And the hardest thing about Zoom meetings, Hala, is that, first of all, and we learned this at the beginning of COVID when I just saw this movie called Hot Fuzz, and it was based, and there's this where they go, this shit just got real. You know, it's like a cop movie, and that was from Bad Boys or something like that. But I remember when COVID started, when we were doing our third Zoom meeting, and I finally provoked real conflict. We said, I think this shit just got real, because too often on Zoom, it's harder to go there because you're not in the same room. And after the meeting's over, you're not going to be able to recover and kind of walk over to the kitchen and talk to them about it. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we don't go deep and get messy during Zoom meetings the way we need to. So that's the thing I would say, first of all, is when we're doing stuff on Zoom, we've got to get to that place where we're being fully human. And it's harder when it's two-dimensional and there's not follow-up and we don't have incidental time. So we need to do that. But the other thing is I would love to know what your partner's working genius is. Because the thing about a short meeting, it's efficient, but it's not necessarily effective. And I'm a believer in effectiveness over efficiency.
Yeah.
Okay. And so sometimes a meeting wanders, but it needed to. And sometimes it takes 45 minutes in a meeting before you finally realize, oh my gosh, we were talking about the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And when a person's sitting in that meeting checking their watch and going, well, I have another meeting to go to and I have real work to do. And here's how to help a person understand that. There's 4 different kinds of meetings that a leadership team has to have, and you and your partner have to have. There's 4. And you can't do them simultaneously. When we do them simultaneously, it doesn't work. I call that meeting stew, where we toss out every ingredient in the cupboard into one pot and stir it up and it just tastes bad. And the 4 different kinds of meetings that need to be separated are, one is what I call a check-in, a daily check-in. And that's like a 5 to 10 minute, like, what are you doing today? What are you doing today? Okay, great. That's great. Okay. Oh, I didn't know you were going to be doing that. Tell Fred I said hi. Can you ask him about this thing? Okay, I can take that off my list. Totally like administrative check-in. Don't sit down, just every day. Mm-hmm. This is me saying to my wife, hey, who's picking the kids up from school? What time are you coming home? Here's, I got this meeting today. Okay, great. The second meeting is called your weekly tactical, if you do it weekly. And this is the running the business meeting where you sit down and you go, okay, these are our goals. Here's how we're doing. Do we need to solve any near-term problems? This one's green, this one's yellow, this one's red. Alan Mulally, who ran Ford, did it that way too. Green, yellow, and red. We do that at our company too. Like, how are we doing? These are our 5 big things we're working on. How are they going? What do we need to do? It's probably an hour, maybe 90 minutes. It's pretty tactical, and it's focused on moving the ball forward.
Yep.
Okay. The problem is there's a third meeting, and we usually combine it with the second meeting. And we call this the strategic topical meeting. This is like there's some big new initiative or idea or problem, and it's really interesting, and it's really urgent. And so we try to talk about it in the same breath where we're going through our goals, and we never give it enough time. This is the meeting where we need to go into a room, clear out 2 hours, and say, we have a competitive threat, or we have this new product idea, or this new partnership. Like you talked to me before about, there's new partnerships you're developing. Don't have that during your regular weekly meeting. Have a separate meeting. All we're going to talk about is that partnership. And go in there, roll up your sleeves, grab some food, get a whiteboard, and argue and debate and dream and do this. That's what people in business school call a case study. It's the most fun you can ever have. And yet we kill that fun by having it in 10-minute increments in between going through our checklists. And it robs our meetings. It makes the tactical meetings confusing. It makes the strategic meetings far too limited. And when the leaders of an organization do that, they really lose their way. And so when somebody says, let's have a short meeting, I say, yeah, make your daily check-in short. Hey, maybe make your weekly tactical fairly short, but never cut off a conversation that needs to be explored and worked through, and it's messy. And that's the biggest problem I see in organizations. They combine their strategic conversations and their tactical ones in the same meeting, and it's never good for anybody. The fourth kind of meeting is what I call, I think it's once a quarter you should probably do it. And maybe it takes 2 hours, maybe it takes a half a day. And that's just the quarterly check-in where you just get out of the office, you take a breath, and you say, is this working? Are we that's probably a WI meeting where you just step back and go, is there anything we're not seeing? What's going on in the market? How are we doing as a team behaviorally? You just need to do that every once in a while. Those 4 kinds of meetings, most organizations try to have all 4 in one meeting, and they call it their weekly meeting, and that's why people hate meetings.
Young and profiters, there is no better time to start a business. There's no better time to be an entrepreneur. You just need a good idea, and then you need to open up shop. And if you want to open up shop, the number one solution is Shopify. Shopify is the all-in-one global commerce platform that allows you to start, run, and grow your business. Shopify will scale with you the whole way. They're responsible for huge multi-million, billion-dollar brands like Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklyn, and Thrive Cosmetics. These all started as Shopify startups and then expanded into retail, expanded and scaled. I interviewed a lot of these entrepreneurs and heard it from them firsthand. Shopify is an amazing platform to start your business, whether you're selling candles or courses like I do. I do all my course sales, my mastermind subscription. I do it on Shopify. We can do promo codes and I integrate my email campaigns, and they've got amazing analytics. Literally anything you need to market and sell your product, you can do it with a couple clicks on Shopify. You don't need to be tech savvy. You can focus on what you're good at, and then let Shopify enable all the tech stuff so you can just get your core skills done. It's no wonder 10% of all e-commerce is run on Shopify. If you want to give Shopify a try, sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/profiting. Again, that's shopify.com/profiting, all lowercase, for a $1 per month trial period. That's shopify.com/profiting. And I want to hear how you guys opened up shop on Shopify. I'm actually really proud of my company because we do all 4.
You do?
We do all 4. So we call each other Scrappy Hustlers. That's our name.
I love it.
And every morning we do a hustler huddle. I do it with my executive team. I do it with my sales and marketing team. 15 minutes. What are we grateful for? What are we working on? Are there any blockers? How do you feel now? that kind of a thing, every
Love it.
single morning. We do something called G90s, where we talk for 90 minutes every week, me and my executive team, about all of our problems, called G90. Then we do a monthly strategic meeting to talk about any strategies. And then we do a quarterly planning, which is the ideation stuff.
Wow.
So I feel like we're really on track here.
You got it. That is crazy. And because you know that people have different contexts when they go into those meetings, and you can't do them all together. Good for you.
Yeah. So no wonder we're doing so great. All right, Patrick.
Seriously, meetings are key.
Yeah. So I know that we're a bit about out of time, and honestly, I had such a great conversation with you. I loved learning about the working genius. I loved understanding how this is going to impact our teams. I end my show with 2 questions that I ask all of my guests. And so you can kind of just think of this as not having to do with the topic necessarily, just whatever comes from your heart. The first one is, what is one actionable thing our young and profiters can do today to become more profiting tomorrow?
Wow. So, I mean, I want to give a thoughtful answer to that. I think that one of the things that people don't do when they're young is get very clear about who they are and what their personal values are. And we're too opportunistic and kind of reacting to whatever's going on, and actually sit down and write down, like, this is the person I want to be and this is what I want to do. And it's so crazy. It's so simple. But, they say if you don't know where you're going, all roads lead there, or no road is right. And so I just think people need to be a little clear about, this is what I'd kind of like to do and who I'd like to be. And then that contextualizes everything else. So that's a very general thing, but it's so simple. And most people are like, I haven't really done that.
Yeah. So actually step back and think about who you want to be in the future, your future you. Like, what do you want to grow into?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what would you say is your secret to profiting in life? And this can go beyond business.
Well, for me, it's 2 things. It's healing. It's identifying the things that happened to me when I was young that I thought were my superpowers, but they were actually wounds because I was working out of those. And then every day I pray. I wake up and I pray. And if I literally, I'm Catholic, Christian. I listen to some Bible readings and I pray, and that is all the difference between waking up and feeling like scattered and lost, and feeling like, everything's good.
Just to dig deep on that just a bit,
Sure.
is that like sort of a gratitude practice that you have? Like, what do you feel like that does to set the foundation for your day, and how can people mimic that?
Well, I think it's everything. It's interesting that you asked that, because I have this app. It's called Amen, and it goes through the readings of the day, so which is like 7 minutes, 8 minutes of the readings, Old Testament, maybe Psalms and the Gospel, and then it asks you a series of questions. And I think in those questions, it kind of gets at the 4 areas of prayer, which is like gratitude, like what you're grateful for; petition, like what you want, what you need; praise, which is like, God, you're good. I mean, this is great. And then sorrow, and like, hey, I want to be better, and I'm sorry I did these things. I think it kind of touches on all 4 of those kinds of prayer. But I'd like to be more. Gratitude is the thing I need to work on the most. I grew up, every time I accomplished something, I would go like, okay, what's next? And I never felt safe just going, oh, that was wonderful. Thank you. That's great. So gratitude is a deficiency area for me. And I learned that from John Gordon. I don't know if you know who John Gordon is.
Yes, I had him on the show, yep.
Oh, he's like one of my favorite human beings, a good dear friend. And the gratitude thing is so critical. So
Michael Jervis came on the show, and he taught me this morning ritual where he says before he even gets out of the covers, the first thing he does is, what are 3 things I'm grateful for?
Wow.
Before you get out of the covers. So now every morning, before I even wake up, when I'm laying in my bed, before I get out of bed, I just say, what am I grateful for? And then I get up. And it just helps a little bit, especially if I remember to do it. It's always a better day.
That's great. I'll remember that. That's fantastic.
Patrick, where can everybody learn more about you and everything that you do?
Well, my company is called The Table Group. So if you go to tablegroup.com, you can find us there. The Working Genius stuff is at workinggenius.com, and they can get to that through your site. And that's it. There's one thing I have that I've started recently. I do a morning 3-minute devotional for professionals who are followers of Jesus. But if you're not, if you're curious about Jesus, you can do it too, because I love everyone. But it's a 3 minutes. It's called the 3-minute reset. Me and a guy named Chris Stefanik do it. And I found that a lot of people really like it. And I just started doing this January 1st of this year, and it's every weekday. And so, because a lot of people are like, I don't know what I want to do around my faith. And it's like, well, here's 3 minutes. Maybe you can just start with 3 minutes. And it's combining stuff that I do in the work world, but with faith. And so a lot of people really like that. It's grown. So
that's
called
amazing.
The 3-minute reset.
How do you join it?
You just go wherever podcasts are and type in the 3-minute reset in my name.
It's a podcast that you can listen to every morning.
Yeah, it's essentially a podcast with a daily 3-minute thing.
Oh, cool. We'll put the link in the show notes. Again, guys, if you want to take the Working Genius assessment, go to youngandprofiting.co/work. We'll put that link in the show notes. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about that assessment. If it helped you, let us know. Write us a review. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us on Young and Profiting Podcast.
It's been a blast. Thank you, Hala.